Breaking news here in batshit bonkers Britain, where inflation is up to 3.5%. So just as ordinary British people realise they can't afford to buy anything, maybe even to eat, they get hit with another fine, probably a speeding fine, for doing 23 miles an hour in a 20 zone. Old Rachel Reeves, ceramic bobhead, hair by Lego, said, "This is all part of my plan for growth." She spelt growth with 2 F's. That's what you get for being the sash bint at the Halifax, I guess.
Ever wondered what happens when Katie Hopkins decides to unleash chaos on Rachel Reeves? Spoiler, it's like watching a reality show meltdown, but with spreadsheets and savage burns. Forget calm debates. This clash is a full-on verbal demolition derby, and nobody's walking away unscathed. If you think politics is dull, think again. Grab your popcorn, because Katie's takedown of Rachel is so brutal, it might just break the internet. Ready for the chaos? Let's dive in.
Just ask the Conservatives. They paid the price for their incompetence, their dishonesty and their rule breaking.
No one's safe in government anymore, not with Katie Hopkins tearing into the Labour regime like a dog with a bone. Since day one at Downing Street, she's been on a relentless mission to expose their hypocrisy and blatant bias. Today's unlucky victim? Rachel Reeves. And oh boy, Hopkins absolutely roasted her for her Department for Transport policies, but honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Reeves' economic decisions have put the UK economy on its knees harder than a bad reality TV star crashing at the worst possible moment.
I know I am the first female ever to be in politics and to be Chancellor ever in 800 years. Obviously Maggie Thatcher was up against it 50 years ago when she was actually Prime Minister, but we don't talk about her anymore, and we've taken her picture off the walls of number 10 Downing Street. I am the first woman ever to be in politics. I am basically Kamala Harris without being able to play the black card or doing so many blowies. However, I have seen Angela Rayner's ginger growler. She was in charge of signage, and because she's working class, we haven't quite spelt it correctly.
You'd think by now, with all the blunders piling up, the public might be forgiven for turning a blind eye or hoping someone else steps in to save the day. But no, Reeves has racked up more disasters in a few months than the Tories managed in their last few years combined, and that's saying something. Remember the infamous £22 billion sterling 0 pence black hole? Labour's signature disaster served hot and fresh the moment they took charge. It's like Reeves handed out a welcome basket full of financial chaos, and the contents stink worse than a forgotten gym sock.
Batshit bonkers Britain, where we find out Sky News is no more. No one's watching it, so it's going behind a paywall. One thing's for certain, if people didn't watch it when it was free, they're not going to pay to watch it behind a paywall, are they? Stronger bosses would just clear out the whole place, and all Sky News employees are now on indeed.co.uk looking for new jobs. We remember a time when Beth Rigby and Kay Burley told us to lock down whilst they were out partying. Funny how karma comes and bites you in the arse, isn't it, Kay? In other news, Jewish people rightly upset because on Holocaust Memorial Day...
So, what's this £22 billion sterling 0 pence black hole anyway? The government's spring budget promised a tidy spending plan, but on the very first day at the Treasury, officials were already whispering, this isn't right. Turns out, the total pressures across various budgets added up to an extra £35 billion sterling, 0 pence once you factor in usual slippages, and a reserve for unexpected disasters. That's how the projected overspend of £22 billion sterling, 0 pence, appeared, kind of like a ghost in the ledger, haunting every fiscal conversation.
Is Chancellor Rachel Reeves, ceramic bobhead, hair by Lego, dress by Lord Ali, fresh from kissed armour shitter, and heating provided by the taxpayer. My speechwriter says this speech is about being together. He says to smile, say our and we, and collective endeavour. Together, collective endeavour, our, we.
But here's the kicker. that black hole might not even exist. The report that supposedly proved the £22 billion sterling 0 pence shortfall, nowhere to be found. Not one mention of the figure. Just a vague note about £9,500 million sterling 0 pence, which even then was uncertain if it was real or just a paper ghost. So Labour's dramatic £22 billion sterling 0 pence deficit, just a convenient illusion, smoke and mirrors, designed to keep the critics quiet while they pin every problem on their predecessors. And while Reeves and her team clung to this phantom black hole as a shield for their dodgy plans, reality was far less kind. Like a band of budget bandits, they swooped in on pensioners' dignity, slashing the winter fuel allowance for nearly 10 million elderly Brits. Because what better way to say we care than by forcing senior citizens to shiver through winter while handing out billions to, well, let's say unexpected recipients. And as if that wasn't enough, ministers announced millions in extra funding for lawyers representing asylum seekers. Lawyers who will then help clear appeal backlogs, slowing down the process of moving migrants out of expensive hotel accommodations. It's almost as if the goal is to keep them comfortably settled on the taxpayer's dime while pensioners are told to bundle up and tough it out.
Breaking news here in batshit bonkers Britain, where Keir Starmer's homes have been firebombed. Now, clearly, it is not okay to firebomb anyone's home, even if they are a complete
But then we got beaten by reform. So now we say we cannot stand illegals. We are the ones that will control the border. You can trust us. We will stop them coming.
Reeves has this uncanny knack for priorities, doesn't she? Cutting vital payments to the vulnerable while granting luxury to those sneaking through the back door. She claims it targets only those most in need, but the cold truth is millions have been left out in the cold. And then there's the inheritance tax hike that slammed farmers hard. A 20% increase combined with capital gains tax has sent shockwaves through the agricultural community. Farming isn't a lifestyle choice. It's a generational commitment. You can almost hear the collective groan from every ploughed field in the country. High interest rates only make borrowing impossible, creating a perfect storm of financial doom. And while these hard-working folk fight for their livelihoods, Reeves is comfortably jetting off to Beijing, because nothing says I care like fleeing the criticism while your country's economy collapses. Speaking of collapse, the pound dropped to its lowest level against the dollar since May. Borrowing costs are at their highest in 16 years, meaning more of your tax money is being sucked up to pay interest on government debt instead of useful public services or infrastructure. Yet Reeves continues to claim the budget provides stable foundations. If that's stability, I'd hate to see what chaos looks like.
Why don't you Google my name and see what it says on Wikipedia, because you'll find out that I'm both a monster, that I'm bankrupted, that I have no background or backbone. You'll find out that I've bedded everybody in the UK. Many of those things won't actually be true. So just because you Googled something, that doesn't really make you Elon Musk, darling, does it? It just means maybe you can use one or two of your hands, probably at one side of your hand more than the other. It's had more practice. You then talk about Zelensky's height as if that's a fact because you read it. And that's a misinterpretation of itself, isn't it? Because just because you read it on Google doesn't make it true, my flower pot, does it?
And then there's the triple lock pension promise. An estimated £1,700 sterling 0 pence rise over the course of the Parliament, which sounds like good news until you realise it's just smoke in the air. Fast forward to now, and she's done a complete U-turn, defending the very policies she once opposed. This flip-flopping is classic Labour in action. Strong words followed by weak deeds. She talks about accountability but ducks out whenever the tide turns against her. Jetting off to China as the UK economy crumbles and criticism mounts is just the cherry on top of a bitter, half-baked cake. And if you think Katie Hopkins is done with Reeves, think again. Hopkins absolutely smoked her on her foul thinking and poor leadership skills, pointing out how Reeves lacks the strength to rule a whole country. It's not just about one disastrous budget or two, it's about an entire approach to governance that seems out of touch and out of ideas. Let's dive straight into the absolute absurdity of those winter fuel allowance cuts, shall we? Imagine being nearly 10 million pensioners, many of whom have worked their entire lives, raised families and contributed to the very fabric of Britain, only to be told this winter, sorry, your firewood and heating bills don't quite make the cut anymore. It's like Labour looked at their budget spreadsheet and decided the elderly could simply hibernate until spring. No blankets, no heating, just grit your teeth and shiver through the frostbite. Katie Hopkins wasted no time calling this what it really is, a downright cruel, heartless decision.
Starmer is failing harder than cheap toilet paper. He can't keep his own shit in order at this point. He's lied about simply everything from pensions to taxation to monetary policy, and now he's going to raise council tax by 10%. He even broke rules during lockdown when he had his vocal coach over to give him some lessons, and she did a pretty poor job because he still sounds like he's got a major stinking cold even when he's denying stuff he obviously did.
Because apparently Labour's priorities are all about funneling £4,300,000,000 sterling, 0 pence, into illegal immigrants arriving uninvited on our shores, ensuring they get the deluxe treatment with hotel stays and legal aid lawyers on tap. Spend billions on freebies for strangers while your own pensioners are left out in the cold. Literally. Katie's sarcastic take? Why worry about the people who built this country when you can roll out the red carpet for those who just rolled in? She didn't hold back on the irony either. Pensioners, she pointed out, are being means-tested out of warmth, while multi-million-pound budgets vanish into thin air for causes that seem to have zero impact on UK citizens' well-being. But hey, who needs warmth when you can have endless queues of lawyers? It's the free justice upgrade to a taxpayer-funded luxury resort. Speaking of people who actually matter, farmers, Rachel Reeves' budget hit them like a wrecking ball. Not content with just ignoring pensioners' suffering, she decided to slap them with a 20% inheritance tax hike, alongside capital gains tax increases. For families who've been farming the same land since the days of horse-drawn ploughs, this is less a tax and more a land grab. You want to keep the farm in the family? Good luck paying off the taxman first.
Here, my director of strategy, who's a right ginger, has said that I should explain our new policy on migration very simply. So before, we loved illegals. We couldn't get enough of illegals. Illegals, come, welcome. I helped bring them in. I put them in hotels. I also love a Rwandan. I love me a stubby Rwandan. In fact, I love all illegals because they are the ones that vote for us. So if you go to any of the Labour strongholds, Luton, Leicester, Birmingham, Bradford, all you'll find is Muslims, and we can buy their vote for 20 quid.
Katie made it crystal clear. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're real stories of families scared stiff that their lifetime legacy, their land, their livelihood is about to be ripped away thanks to Labour's progressive policies. The emotional toll? Absolutely massive. And if you thought farmers were going to quietly accept this injustice, think again. Angry beyond belief, they took to the streets in true British fashion, tractors, trucks, even trolleys, turning Westminster into a full-on agricultural riot zone. There they were, beeping horns, shouting slogans, and making sure every MP knew that this was no small bump in the road. It was a direct assault on their way of life. At a time when the pound was crashing harder than a drunken pub crawler and borrowing costs were climbing to heights unseen since the turn of the millennium, Reeves chose luxury flights over fiscal responsibility. Katie's sarcasm sliced through the pretences like a hot knife through butter. Nothing says, "I've got this under control," like hopping on a plane to Beijing while the economy goes belly up. She highlighted the hypocrisy of a government that slashes support to the vulnerable at home, then turns around and splurges on foreign trips and stability narratives that belong in a fantasy novel. The pound's plummet and the skyrocketing interest rates weren't just economic facts. They were glaring indictments of a government out of touch and out of answers.
Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where there's a story it seems the mainstream aren't keen to carry into this week, which is the story of the non-English speaking Ukrainian bum boy that set fire to Keir Starmer's apartment, his home, his old car and all sorts of other things. Rumour has it the bum boy was recommended to Keir by Zelensky, who'd used him often and found his services to be very enjoyable. More on that, I'm sure.
The political double standards didn't stop there. On one hand, there were harsh cuts that left pensioners shivering and farmers fearing ruin. On the other, lavish spending on legal aid for asylum seekers, funding for endless migrant appeal processes, and the kind of political jet-setting that costs millions. It's like watching a soap opera where the villain turns out to be the lead character. Only in this drama, the stakes are the nation's survival. Katie didn't pull any punches. She called out Reeves for ducking accountability at every turn, expertly avoiding tough questions by choosing when and where to appear, preferably far away from the UK's mounting crises. It was political cowardice wrapped in a fancy business class seat. It's a bit like claiming your sinking boat is seaworthy because you've painted over the holes. Katie's sharp wit made sure that everyone understood how hollow these claims were. The government's budget was a house of cards and the wind had just picked up. What really made Katie's takedown so devastating was how effortlessly she exposed the dissonance between Labour's rhetoric and reality. While they promise a fair and caring society, their actions scream the opposite. Pensioners denied warmth, farmers threatened with extinction, and taxpayers left footing the bill for an endless parade of political games.
Here's the thing, Keir. I've had a thought that fixes a lot of your problems. So, you're looking to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, specifically Kyiv. I thought, why don't you get all the people that had a Ukraine flag on their social media profile? Obviously, they had to take down their NHS one and their LGBTQ one to put up the Ukraine one. But those people, and the people who took in a Ukrainian into their homes like a little pet, just for Christmas. The people that are like, oh yeah, we've got one.
Katie's commentary wasn't just criticism. It was a spotlight shining on the absurdity of a government that seems to have lost its moral compass and its grasp on economic reality. The cruel cuts, the reckless spending, and the evasions of responsibility all paint a picture of leadership detached from the people it supposedly serves. So as pensioners bundle up in blankets, farmers rev their engines in protest, and the pound nosedives, Katie Hopkins reminds us all that this isn't just about politics, it's about basic decency. And when those in power choose foreign luxury over domestic hardship, that's when the sarcasm becomes a weapon and the roast turns into a wake-up call. Of course, Reeves isn't the only one catching flack. Keir Starmer, Labour's frontman, gets roasted just as mercilessly. Starmer's policies and leadership style have been equally ridiculous, plunging the party into chaos while promising hope that never arrives. It's like watching a circus where the ringmaster forgot how to juggle, except the clowns are in charge of the economy. Starmer's vision for the UK looks more like a slow-mo train wreck. His government's tax hikes are killing business confidence, shrinking the private sector, and sending the pound plummeting. Meanwhile, he offers vague promises and speeches filled with buzzwords but little substance. And as Katie Hopkins gleefully points out, Starmer is part of the problem, propping up disastrous policies and dodging responsibility at every turn. It's almost impressive how this duo manages to damage the country while convincing themselves they're the saviours.
Rachel Reeves, we can put this diplomatically, she is under pressure to explain the, in quotes, fake claims, close quotes, otherwise known as lies, on her curriculum vitae.
Another Ukrainian bum boy arrested for firebombing Keir Starmer's home. These rent boys are going to appear at the Old Bailey on the 6th of June. They're expected to arrive in a rainbow-coloured police car, dressed in fetish gear and pup play, because that's how Keir likes.
But the public isn't fooled. Pensioners, farmers, taxpayers and businesses are all feeling the pinch. The winter's cold isn't just from the weather, it's from a government that cut essential support while opening the coffers to unvetted immigrants and legal backlogs. This mess isn't just an accident, it's a policy choice. And Katie Hopkins isn't letting them off the hook. She's calling out the hypocrisy, the cruelty and the incompetence with brutal honesty. No dodging, no spin, just cold hard truths, served with a side of savage sarcasm. So what does this all mean? The government's economic foundations are shaky at best, built on shaky numbers and broken promises. Pensioners shiver, farmers revolt, the pound falls and borrowing costs soar. Meanwhile, Reeves and Starmer jet off to photo ops and foreign trips, leaving the British public to pick up the pieces. The question now isn't if this house of cards will collapse, it's how spectacularly and how soon. And if Katie Hopkins has anything to say about it, the countdown to that collapse is well underway. And if you thought Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer were bad before, just wait until Katie Hopkins gets her next opportunity to roast them alive. It's going to be epic.